You just checked the time, maybe twice. You didn't decide to. Your eyes just went there, the way they've gone there 10,000 times before. Here's what's insane. For 300,000 years, nobody on Earth knew what time it was. Not the king, not the priest, not the smartest person alive. No number to check. No 8:47, just the sun, the dark, and the seasons turning. And somehow, that was enough. So here's the actual question I want to answer, not how did clocks get invented? That's the boring version. The real question is what happens to a human being once you hand them a number and tell them that's what time it is. Because something breaks. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at a clock the same way. For almost everyone who ever lived, time wasn't a number, it was an event. You didn't wake up at 6 a.m. You woke up when the sky turned gray and the birds started. You didn't say noon, you said when the sun's over that hill. You didn't say see you in 3 hours. You said by the time we reach the river. Anthropologists actually have a name for this. Task orientation. Time measured by the task, not the clock. A man fishing doesn't stop because a bell rings. He stops when the fish are caught or the light's gone. And this is the part most people get wrong. They assume that means ancient people had no sense of time at all. They were tracking it obsessively. They just weren't tracking it for you. They were tracking it to survive. And the proof of that is buried in the ground in Scotland. 12,000 years ago, a field in Scotland called Warren Field. Hunter-gatherers dug 12 pits into the earth. No writing, no farming, no cities. For a long time, nobody knew what they were for. Then, archaeologists figured it out. The pits track the phases of the moon across the year and line up perfectly with sunrise on the shortest day of winter. It's the oldest known calendar on the planet, built before farming, before writing, before the wheel. Same impulse, somewhere else. Newgrange, Ireland, a tomb 5,000 years old, older than the pyramids. One narrow opening. Once a year on the winter solstice, the rising sun lines up exactly with that opening and floods the inner chamber with light for 17 minutes. It still happens. Every year, on schedule, for 5,000 years. Someone designed that. Someone understood the sky well enough to bury light inside a building and trust it would show up exactly on time. 5 millennia later. Okay, so for almost all of human history, the sky was the clock, and it was enough. Then, about 6,000 years ago, someone had an idea that would eventually take time away from every person on Earth. It started simple. A stick in the ground. The shadow moves as the sun crosses the sky. Mark where it falls, and you've divided the day into pieces. The Egyptians turned this into the sundial. For the first time, the day had named segments. You could agree to meet someone at a specific mark, but the sun has a problem. It goes out every night. It disappears under clouds. Summer hours are longer than winter hours. The sun keeps the world's time, not yours. So humans built something that didn't need the sky at all, the water clock. A steady drip, a falling water level, marking hours in total darkness. The Greeks used this to time court speeches. Read that again. Thousands of years ago, we'd already invented the idea that your time could run out while everyone watched the water drop. Then candles burned in marked increments. Then sand, sealed in glass. Time you could hold in your hand and flip over. But none of this ran the world yet. These were tools for the few. For everyone else, the sun still ruled the day. That changes with one invention, built by monks for a reason you'd never guess. Medieval Europe. Monks had a problem. Their entire life was built around prayer at fixed hours, day and deep into the night. Sleeping through a prayer was a failure of the soul. They needed a machine that didn't care about the sun. So around 1300, the mechanical clock is born. Gears, weights, a ticking escapement that beats out identical pieces of time forever. And here's the part that quietly rewired civilization. The mechanical clock doesn't measure the day. It ignores it. Doesn't care if it's summer or winter, light or dark, you're awake or asleep. It just counts. For the first time in 300,000 years, humans had time that belonged to no one and applied to everyone. We put it in a tower in the center of town and rang a bell. And this is where it stops being a story about clocks and starts being a story about power. Because once you can measure an hour precisely, you can sell it. Historian Jacques Le Goff described two kinds of time pulling apart in the medieval city: the time of the church, tied to eternity and the rhythm of prayer. And a new time, the time of the merchant. You can now rent a human's hours. The bell that once called monks to prayer started calling workers to the workshop. Time stopped being something you lived inside. It became something you were given, and something that could be taken. Then the factory turned the clock from a guide into a master. A factory needs every hand on the machine at the same second, or the whole line stops. Arrive after the bell? Locked out. Fine. Gone. The whistle replaced the rooster. Historian E.P. Thompson documented this shift. A whole way of being human, rebuilt around the clock. The worker who used to measure his day by what got done now, measured it by how many hours he'd sold. And there's one more invention that finished the job, that forced the entire planet to agree on a single number all at once. For most of history, every town had its own noon. 20 miles east, the next town's noon was a few minutes off, and nobody cared because nobody moved fast enough for it to matter. Then the trains got fast enough to kill people. A few minutes of confusion on a single track means two trains in the same place. So the railways erased every local time and drew lines across the map. Inside this line, every clock reads the same. Standard time, time zones. The sun no longer set your noon. A railway company did, then a government, then the whole world. By 1900, the entire planet agreed on one number. For the first time ever, we stopped reading the sky. We started reading a number, decided by people we'd never meet, for reasons that had nothing to do with our own lives. A hunter-gatherer digging pits to catch the returning sun, because the light coming back meant survival. An Egyptian watching a shadow split the day into pieces for the first time. A monk waking in pitch black to a machine that didn't care about the dark. A factory worker watching a clock on the wall, waiting for a bell to let him leave. And you, checking your phone twice in the time it took to read a sentence. We didn't gain time, we surrendered it. Your ancestors didn't have less time than you. In a way, they had all of it. Their day ended when the task was done, not when a number said so. They couldn't be late because there was nothing to be late for. We built the tool that finally made time countable, and the second it was countable, it became something that could be taken from us. The sun told them when to live. A number tells you when to wake up, when to work, when you're late, when you're early, how long you've wasted, how much you have left. And maybe that's the strangest thing about knowing exactly what time it is. For 300,000 years, humans watched the world change around them to know that time was passing. Now we watch the numbers change. We divided the day into hours, the hours into minutes, the minutes into seconds, until every moment had a name, a place, a number. We wanted to measure time so we could control it. Instead, we built our entire lives around it. And now, without even thinking, you check the time, maybe twice,